All persons having anything to do before the Honorable, the Justice E. Susan Gosh of the Superior Court, now sitting at Fall River within and for the Commonwealth. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Court is now in session. Be seated, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Today is Friday, March 27, 2015. The case on trial is Commonwealth v. Aaron Hernandez, indictment BRCR 2013-0983. The Honorable E. Susan Gosh presiding.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
As you can see, one of your number is not here. That juror has been excused today for reasons that are personal to the juror and have nothing at all to do with any of the evidence in this case or this case. It will have no effect on our ability to go forward, and please put that entirely out of your minds. Let me ask you, have any of you seen, read, heard, or overheard anything at all about this case or Mr. Hernandez since I last inquired? There are no further responses. Have any of you discussed this case or Mr. Hernandez with anyone at all since I last inquired? There are no further responses. And have any of you had any difficulty following all of my instructions not to talk about or otherwise communicate about, look at, listen to, or do any research about Mr. Hernandez, the case, or anything you think could in any way be relevant to the case? There are no further responses, and let me thank you very much for your patience this morning.
And Your Honor, just for the purpose of the record, we're suspending on the witness from yesterday by agreement.
Thank you. So the witness that started to testify yesterday will be back. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the Commonwealth will call Shayanna Jenkins, please.
Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give to this court and this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, ma'am.
Have a seat, ma'am.
You may proceed.
May I, Your Honor? Thank you. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Would you state your full name?
Sure, it's Shayanna Jenkins.
Okay, and could you spell your first name, please?
Sure, it's Shayyanna.
And your last name?
Jenkins.
How old are you?
25.
And where do you live?
North Attleboro.
And where in North Attleboro do you live?
22 Ronald C. Meyer Drive.
And how long have you lived there?
3 years?
And do you recall moving in sometime in November, December of 2012?
Yes.
And at that time when you moved in, who did you move in with?
Aaron.
Okay, and Aaron, is that Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
And is he in the courtroom today?
He is.
Could you just point him out and describe what he's wearing?
Sure, he's sitting next to Mr. Rankin. He has a black suit on and black tie.
Okay. And Your Honor, if the record can reflect the identification of the defendant.
It may.
Now, and at that time, ma'am, was your child a few months old?
She was.
And Ronald C. Meyer, 22 Ronald C. Meyer, during the course of time that you lived there, did you have any vehicles?
Yes.
And what kind of vehicles did you have?
I have an Audi.
And is that just what color is that?
White.
And what style?
It's a Q7.
Okay. Is that sort of an SUV-like
Yes.
vehicle? And were there any other vehicles that you had at your home in the spring of 2013?
Spring of 2013. Yes.
Okay. And what other vehicles did you have?
There was a Toyota, I think.
Okay. Do you know what type of Toyota?
A Camry.
And do you recall what color that was?
Tan, maybe.
And whose tan Toyota Camry was that?
It wasn't, I guess, a specific vehicle for anyone
Okay, well, where was that kept?
in our bay.
And when you say in your bay, is that one of the garage bays?
Yes,
How many bays of, how many garage bays did you have?
3.
And just describe where, in which bay was that kept?
The first one,
Would that be closest to the street?
yes.
And do you recall when that, that Toyota Camry was first placed in that garage bay?
Between April and May, I think.
And do you know how it came to be placed in that bay?
Yes, it came on an 18-wheeler,
I'm sorry, it came in?
in a truck, an 18-wheeler.
Okay, and was it, so delivered?
Yes.
And when it was delivered, who was there to pick it up or accept it?
I was at the home, but I believe Aaron came shortly after.
Okay, when you say came shortly after, what do you mean by that? Had he been somewhere before?
He was on his way home. I don't necessarily know where he was, but we technically were both there when the car was being delivered.
Okay, and just tell us about how it was delivered. Tell us about that day.
Well, it didn't necessarily come on our street. I got a call from the driver saying that he had some difficulty.
Oh, okay, as a result of the call, did you go somewhere or do something?
In regards,
Let me just back up. So at some point, did somebody call you?
yes,
And was it in reference to this vehicle?
yes,
And as a result of, did you receive that call?
yes,
And do you know how that person had your number?
yes.
Okay, and how was that?
I believe,
Object to hearsay.
Right. Since you provided a number, you may testify.
Yes, ma'am. Had you made any arrangements for the delivery of this Toyota Camry?
no,
So prior to receiving that call, had you made contact with anybody about the Toyota, the delivery of the Toyota Camry, or the Toyota Camry in any respect?
I might have.
Okay. And you recall what you might have done?
I may have returned a call.
Okay. And now, prior to the delivery of that Toyota Camry, had you had any conversation with the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, about the delivery of this vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, and just tell us about that.
I was just told to be home and accept the vehicle.
Okay, and who told you that?
Aaron did.
Okay. And did you have any conversation about the vehicle itself, where it was coming from, what is it for?
I can't say because I don't remember.
As a result of that conversation with the defendant, did you then stay at home and wait for the delivery of this vehicle?
Yeah, I mean, I was always home, so I wasn't necessarily, I wasn't waiting on the vehicle. I
see.
was always home.
Okay. So when you had indicated he said you to be at home,
Right.
what did you mean by that?
Just be there at that time, basically.
Okay. And were you home on this particular day?
Yes,
And you've indicated you received this phone call.
right.
And as a result of that, do you do something?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Just, do you leave your home
To,
to go anywhere?
as far as like,
Like just to go outside?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay. Let me ask you this. After you received that phone call, do you have a conversation with the defendant?
After I received the phone call from the
Yes, ma'am.
driver, yes.
Okay. And where was he at that time?
I believe on his way home.
And just tell us about, so did you call him?
I believe so.
And just tell us about that conversation.
I believe I just let him know that the driver couldn't make it on our street.
And was there a conversation about this Toyota Camry is here or it's to be delivered?
I think I might have told him that, I mean, obviously it was there if he couldn't make it on the street. Yes.
Okay. And what did he say, meaning he being the defendant?
Something along the lines of him being on his way home.
Okay. And after that conversation, excuse me, how long after that do you next see the defendant?
Maybe a few minutes after.
Okay. And when you saw him, how was he traveling?
By car.
And do you know whose car he was traveling in?
I don't.
Okay. Did you, you've indicated that you had at that time, do you still have the white SUV?
I do.
And did you have that at home with you that day?
I believe so.
So at that time, what vehicle was the defendant using?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know whether he owned any other vehicles at that time? End of April, early May?
Was this 2013,
Yeah,
correct?
yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Well, let me ask you this.
Okay.
Did you know anything about a black Hummer?
Yes.
Okay. Was that owned by the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, at this time?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know where that vehicle was kept? Or where it was on this particular day?
I don't.
And do you know if he had a rental car on this day?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. You said within a few minutes of your having a conversation about this vehicle being delivered,
Right.
you actually see the defendant.
Right.
And when you see him, he was obviously traveling by vehicle.
Right.
Was he with anybody?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Do you know an individual by the name of Bo?
I do.
And who is Bo?
A friend, I guess,
Okay. When you say a friend of whom?
of Aaron's.
Okay. Are you friendly with him as well?
Yeah.
And how long have you known him?
Maybe a year and a half, 2 years, somewhere around there,
And was that a year and a half, 2 years prior to or to the time we're talking about or since this time?
since this time,
Okay. And how was it that you first met him?
through Aaron.
And what type of relationship did they have? Do you know how they knew each other?
I believe through his family.
And do you know how long he had known him?
A few years, maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, on the date that we've been talking about, the date of the delivery of this vehicle, the Toyota Camry, do you recall the day before whether where the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, was or had been?
The day before the delivery?
Yes. Maybe I can help
Yeah.
ask another question.
Okay.
Do you know if he was out of town?
Yes.
Okay, and at that time, in April, the end of April, so up until April 30th of 2013, were you and the defendant renting any place?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a rental in California?
Yes.
Okay, and just tell us about that. Where was that?
Oh, geez. Manhattan Beach?
I'm sorry?
Manhattan Beach?
Okay. And are you familiar with Hermosa Beach?
Yes, I believe they're either similar or suggested as the same area.
Okay. So were you renting a place that was either in Manhattan, excuse me, Manhattan Beach or one in the same Hermosa Beach?
Yes.
And what type of place were you renting?
I guess you could consider it as a house.
Okay. And do you know how many bedrooms it had?
3?
And had you spent some time out there in the spring of 2013?
Yes.
And what about the defendant?
Yes.
And do you know whether Bo spent any time out there in the spring of 2013.
Not while I was there, no.
Okay. Now, I had asked you a few minutes ago about, do you recall the day before the delivery, do you recall where the defendant was?
Yes.
And do you know where he was?
I believe he was coming back from California.
And do you recall the day of the delivery, do you recall whether he arrived on that date or the day prior or some other time?
I don't remember when he came back.
Now, when he arrived, the day this vehicle was being delivered, did you, you don't recall the vehicle that he had at that time?
No.
And when he arrived, do you recall whether he came into your driveway, or where did he park?
I don't know. I believe at that point I was inside.
Okay. At some point, did you see him either inside or outside?
Yes, I did see him.
And as a result of seeing him, did you go outside or did you remain inside?
I believe I remained inside.
Now, sometime after that, do you know whether the vehicle was picked up on that same day, either some short time thereafter?
What do you mean, picked up or dropped off?
I'm sorry, dropped off or picked up by either yourself or by the defendant?
Yes.
And who picked it up?
Aaron did.
Okay. And do you, prior to him picking it up, had you given him something?
Yes.
What did you give him?
Well, I don't know if I gave it to him directly or I put it in the mailbox. It was the remaining balance of the vehicle transportation.
Okay. And do you remember what the remaining balance was?
Somewhere between $500 and $700, I believe.
Okay. And again, how did you know the remaining balance?
I don't remember if I was... I think it was the vehicle transportation that let me know the remaining balance.
Okay. And so outside of receiving, do you recall, obviously receiving the one call that you've described that day about the delivery?
Right.
And possibly another phone call?
Yes.
Okay. Outside of that, had you done anything to arrange for this delivery?
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Yes. Had you done anything else to make the arrangement to have this car delivered to you?
I mean, I think maybe confirming my information and then withdrawing money. That's about it.
Okay. And when you withdrew the money, or at any time during this process of the making any arrangement or withdrawing money, did you have any conversations with the defendant about the vehicle?
I don't believe so.
Okay. And even after then the receipt of the Toyota Camry, did you have a conversation about the purpose of this car?
I believe later on I had asked.
Okay, and what did he say?
Well, I had asked him when the vehicle was going to, be out of our bay. And he let me know that it would be a short time or however long. And that was about it.
Okay. Do you recall when you had that conversation with him?
Not immediately.
Okay. When you say not immediately, do you recall some passage of time, either days or weeks?
I would say maybe a couple days or maybe hours. I'm not sure.
Okay. And do you recall then after that conversation, how long did that Toyota Camry continue to remain in the garage?
It stayed there.
And did you have any further conversations about the purpose of this car, what it was to be used for, what was going to be done with it?
I don't believe so.
Okay. use the overhead. Ma'am, I'm just going to show you a few items that have been marked as exhibits, and I'll just have you direct your attention to the left. First of all, I'm just placing what's been marked 396 on the overhead. Do you recognize this document, ma'am?
I do.
And what do you recognize it to be?
It looks to be the
Can you see
receipt.
that right there?
Yes, I can. The receipt of the delivery.
And there was certain information regarding a balance, a COD balance. Can you see that?
I can.
And do you recall paying that amount or collecting that amount and putting it in the, I think you said the mailbox or providing it?
Right, I do.
And this information here, do you recognize that information, ma'am?
Yes,
And does that accurately include your phone number?
it does.
And just going to show you some other items that have been marked. 216A is on the overhead. You recognize what's depicted in this photograph?
I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
My vehicle and the other vehicle I mentioned before.
Okay. And is your vehicle in the foreground?
It is.
And the other vehicle that we've been talking about, is that the Toyota in the background here?
Yes.
And is that the position it essentially stayed from the time you indicated that it went into the bay until sometime in the latter part of June 2013?
It is.
Excuse me. And just going to place 216B. Is that just a different view, ma'am?
It is.
The same here, 216C.
Yes.
Now, after that car was placed in that bay, did you ever see, was the car ever used?
Not from my knowledge.
And do you know an individual by the name of Papu?
No.
Have you ever heard that name before?
Well, briefly,
When you say briefly, when did you first hear that name?
when I met with my lawyers.
Oh, okay. So just going back to June of 2013, at that time, did you know, had you ever heard the name Papu?
No.
What about an Oscar Hernandez?
No.
Now, ma'am, did you ever see a firearm in your home?
Yes.
And again, just focusing on the time that you had moved into 22 Ronald C. Meyer, tell us the circumstances of seeing a firearm in your home.
I found it in my junk drawer.
Okay, and when you say you found it in your junk drawer, what is your junk drawer?
It's just a drawer that you throw random things in,
And where is that?
in
your
our
home?
kitchen.
Okay. And just if you would describe the layout of your kitchen, does that attach to a great room area?
It does.
And the junk drawer, where is that in your kitchen?
It is the drawer, I guess, closest to the great room,
Okay. So,
on the island, if that makes it, on the island, if that makes a difference.
okay, so in between the kitchen and the great room, is there an island that separates the two?
Yes.
And on which side of the island is the junk drawer?
Well, I guess the left. But
The left
I'm-
is,
If I'm facing the backyard, it's on the left, so
Okay.
the closest to the great room.
I see. Do you know where, is there a little sitting area, kitchen area where you can sit down for breakfast?
Yes,
Would it be facing toward that area to your left, with also the great room on your left side?
it would be facing the table, yes.
Okay. Now, just tell us, when you first observed this firearm, just how did it appear? What did you notice? First of all, what color was it?
It was black.
And how big was it?
I don't really remember the size.
Okay. Do you recall on a prior occasion being asked certain questions about the size of the firearm?
Yes,
And do you recall, was I asking you those questions?
yes,
And did I hold up a sheet of paper and ask you to try and orient the size of it in relation to the piece of paper?
I believe so.
Okay. Do you recall how you described that on a piece of paper, like how long it was?
No, I don't.
Do you recall suggesting it was about an inch short of a sheet of paper on the long side?
I don't remember.
Now, do you recall seeing...
Let me give some instructions. As I've told you, the defendant is not charged with committing any crime, including unlawful possession of a firearm, other than the charges contained in the indictments before you. Testimony by this witness about an object that may have been seen at the defendant's residence cannot be considered by you as proof that the defendant has a propensity to commit any of the crimes charged or as evidence of bad character. If you credit such evidence, you may consider it to the extent you may find it relevant solely on the issue of whether the defendant had the means to commit the murder charge or to arm another with whom he was aiding and abetting with the means to commit that offense. You may not consider this evidence for any other purpose whatsoever. Specifically, you cannot use it to conclude that if this witness saw a firearm at the defendant's residence, he must have committed the crimes with which he is charged. And could I see counsel for a moment, please?
Ma'am, is your memory exhausted with regard to the observation of the size of the black firearm that you saw in the junk drawer?
Yes.
Thank you. Ma'am, I'm just going to show you a document and ask you if you would read, beginning at, say, line 11 down to the bottom of the page, just to yourself. Does that refresh your memory, ma'am, about the length of the black firearm that you saw in the junk drawer?
It doesn't, but I mean, if it's there, then
Check then.
That's the same.
Okay. That does not.
no.
Okay. So just on your own memory, from your observations of what you saw in the junk drawer, can you just demonstrate for us approximately how large or small this firearm was?
I mean, this would be guessing.
Check that.
Not guess.
Yeah, I don't know. No, I don't remember how big it was.
And when you saw that firearm, just tell us what you did.
I located Aaron somewhere in the house, and I remember giving him a look. And I'm not sure if we exchanged words, but it was about it.
Okay, when you say you gave him a look, what kind of look did you give him?
Just like a stern look, like, you know.
Okay. And where did you see him in the home?
I don't remember. Could have been downstairs in the basement.
And at that time, did you have the firearm with you?
No.
So how was it that you had expressed with this stern look about finding the firearm to him?
Just gave him a look.
Okay. And as a result of giving him the look, did he say anything to you?
I don't remember.
Okay. So what, if any, conversation do you recall regarding the firearm that you found in the junk drawer?
I don't remember if we had any conversation. I do remember giving him a look, though.
And at some later point, did you see whether this black firearm was still in that junk drawer?
At a later point?
Yes.
You're asking if I checked if there was...
Yeah, like the next occasion, or do you remember the next occasion you would have gone back to the junk drawer?
I don't, but when I did go back to the junk drawer, it wasn't there.
And do you recall how much time in between those two occasions?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you have a conversation after, at some point, observing that it was no longer there with the defendant about the black firearm in the junk drawer?
No.
And do you recall whether you, did you ever have an occasion to see that item again?
No.
I could have a moment. Ma'am, again, I'm just going to place something here to have you take a look at. This is 317K. I'm just going to ask you to focus. Well, first of all, do you recognize this location?
I do.
And where is this?
That's our foyer.
And that's the foyer of your home at 22 Ronald C. Meyer?
That's correct.
And with regard to the black firearm that you observed in the junk drawer, I'm just going to have you look at this item and ask you if you recognize that item.
No.
Is there anything either similar or dissimilar about this item than the black firearm that you saw?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you notice any similarities or dissimilarities about this item as compared to the black firearm that you observed in the junk drawer?
Objection.
I mean, I can't see the full item. It's not depicted here, so.
Does that assist you at all, ma'am?
I mean, only a black blob it looks like right now.
Well, with regard to the black firearm that you saw, can you just describe the shape of it for us?
The shape of the firearm?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, just kind of, it had a handle, and then I don't know really much about firearms, but it was kind of the shape of this or this way, if you want to,
Okay.
like an L kind of, I guess.
Okay. And is that in any way different than the item, that L shape that you described, is that in any way different than the item in this photograph?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Well, you described a handle on the firearm that you observed, as well as another part. What was the other part?
Oh, I don't know what it's called.
Okay. But did it form a particular shape?
Yes,
And you're referring to that as an L shape?
correct.
Does this item here appear to be similar to an L-shaped item or dissimilar?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustain the form of the question.
What is, compared to what you've described as the L shape of the black firearm, what is the shape of this item that I've shown you on the overhead?
Objection.
Sustained.
Ma'am, I'm just holding what's been previously marked JJ for identification. This firearm has been secured. Do you recognize this as being similar or dissimilar to the black firearm that you observed in the drawer of the junk drawer?
You're holding it in a way that it's hard.
I'm sorry. You know what, if you wouldn't mind, please. Recognize this, ma'am? It is similar shape to the item, the firearm that you saw in your junk drawer.
I'm just going to ask you to maybe lay it down in front because the way you're holding it, it's impossible to tell the size of what you're
It's
holding.
a secured firearm?
It is a secured and empty
Okay.
firearm. You tell me if you want me to manipulate that in any particular way so you can see it better.
Okay, what was your question? I'm sorry.
And my question was, just in terms of the black firearm that you observed in the junk drawer, is this similar or dissimilar to what you observed?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overall,
Shape, yes.
Okay. Color?
Yes.
Size?
I'm not sure.
I'm just going to ask you for...
Oh, I'm sorry. I was kind of, yeah. Okay.
Can you just repeat your last answer? I don't know that everyone heard you.
Not sure.
Okay. Now, ma'am, I had asked you about an individual by the name of Bo. Have you, do you know what his true name is?
I do.
And what is that?
Ernest Wallace?
And did you ever know him by the name of Gregory Moore?
No.
And did you ever know him by any nicknames?
Bo?
Okay. What about Fish?
No.
You don't recall ever hearing that?
I remember hearing the name, yes.
Okay, when you say hearing it, do you know how Aaron Hernandez, the defendant, referred to Bo?
Bo?
Okay, in terms of Fish, did you ever hear him use that nickname?
I have.
Now, was there any relationship between, familial relationship between the defendant and Bo or Fish?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. Do you know if there was any familial, family relationship between the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, and Bo or Fish or Ernest Wallace?
No.
Did you ever hear the defendant refer to him in a term that would suggest some type of family connection?
Not from my knowledge.
Did you ever hear him refer to him as his uncle?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Now, do you know, taking you back to the spring of 2013, do you know what Ernest Wallace or Bo or Fish was doing for work?
I don't.
Do you know how he was supporting himself?
I don't.
How often would you see him during this time, the spring of 2013?
Couple times a week, maybe,
Okay. And where would you generally see him?
at our house.
And when he was at your home, just describe what would he be doing?
He'd be downstairs in the basement,
And would he be down there with anybody?
generally with Aaron.
And just in terms of what types of things would the two of them do together?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Do you know, did you ever smell marijuana in your home?
Yes.
And do you know who was using marijuana in your home?
Yes.
And who was that?
Aaron.
And what about Bo?
Yes.
And where would they use marijuana?
In the basement.
And at some point, did you meet an individual by the name of Odin Lloyd?
I did.
And how did you meet Odin Lloyd?
Through my sister.
And your sister, that's Shayanna?
That's correct.
I'm sorry, ma'am, I'm just going to ask you to keep your voice up just a little bit.
Sure.
Thank you. And your sister, Shayanna, is she older or younger than you are?
Younger.
And how many years are there between you?
2.
And are you close as sisters? Have you been in the past, ma'am?
I mean, we've strange, kind of.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this. Back in 2000, the end of, say, 2012 to 2013, did you ever have your sister to your home?
Yes.
How often would she come to your home?
Generally, whenever she was coming to see Odin.
Okay. And do you know how long they had been together, dating?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know whether it was a matter of months or longer?
Could have been longer than a couple months.
And do you, with regard to when your sister Shayanna would come to visit, would Odin spend time at your home visiting her?
Yes.
And did you have occasion or an opportunity to get to know him?
Somewhat.
Okay, when you say somewhat, how well did you know him?
Well, I mean, we had a kind of cordial relationship, so I mean, I knew where he lived and worked, but I don't know if that was from him or my sister telling me.
Okay. So when you say cordial, did you know a little bit about him?
Yeah, a little.
And It's sometime in the spring, let me ask you this. The evening of June 17, 2013, did you learn that he had been killed?
Yes.
And sometime prior to that, do you know where, did you have a conversation with the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, about where he was getting his marijuana?
Yes.
Okay, and what did he tell you?
I mean, it was from two separate areas, or two separate people, I guess.
Okay. Was one of those people Odin Lloyd?
Yes.
Okay, and what did he say about that?
I don't really know what we spoke about.
Just again, really going to ask you to keep
Sorry.
it up so that everyone can hear.
Okay. I don't remember what we spoke about as far as him letting me know any type of knowledge as far as the...
Okay, well, do you recall having a conversation with him about him getting marijuana from Odin?
Yes.
Okay, and what did he say about that?
I mean, just that that was his source.
Okay, and do you recall how long prior to his death that you had had that conversation with him?
I want to say in... Yeah, I'm not sure of the time frame.
And during this conversation with the defendant, did he indicate that he was giving money to Odin to buy marijuana from him?
Yes.
Now, with regard to Odin Lloyd coming to your home and visiting with your sister, do you know what, if any, relationship he had with Aaron Hernandez, the defendant?
I believe there were separate occasions that they hung out together.
Okay, when you say there were separate occasions, do you recall when those were?
I don't.
And were you, to what extent were you aware of what, if any, relationship they had?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
To what extent were you aware of any relationship they had?
Well, they had a relationship.
Okay. And how would you characterize that relationship?
As being friends.
Okay. Do you recall indicating it was cordial?
I remember indicating that him and I were cordial. I don't remember indicating that Aaron. I mean, it's a possibility. I don't.
And I'm just going to ask you again, if you would, I'm going to show you this document, if you just read the highlighted portions, but to yourself, please.
Sure.
Does that refresh your memory as to whether you characterize or describe the relationship between Aaron and Odin is it was cordial.
I do, but it does, I'm sorry.
And did you indicate to what extent you knew their relationship?
I said they were,
I object to that, Your Honor.
Does that refresh your memory about when being asked, and to what extent you actually knew about their relationship?
it does.
Okay, and to what extent did you even know about their relationship?
What, I said they weren't the best of friends.
Okay, but with regard to the extent of their relationship, do you recall how you answered that?
I'm sorry, can I,
Object to that, Your Honor.
Objection sustained, the form of the question.
Is your memory exhausted, ma'am?
Well, as to what she said or as to what she knows?
To what you know about the extent of their relationship?
I know them as being, well, am I exhausted? No, I know them to being friends.
Okay. So if you had indicated, I don't really know about the relationship they had,
Right.
okay, is that an accurate reflection of what you knew about the extent of their relationship?
Well, yes, because I said they weren't the best of friends. It doesn't mean that they weren't friends.
But when you said their relationship was cordial, can you just tell us what does that mean?
Cordial, I mean, it's a very broad type of view on a friendship. I mean, I wasn't with them 24/7, so, I mean, they were always together when he came over, so, I mean, that's not friends, and I don't know what that is.
Okay, so when you say they were always together, did Odin spend any time with Shayanna when he was old?
He did, but, I mean, the majority of the time was downstairs in the basement.
Okay. And so to the extent that you said Aaron's relationship with Odin, it was cordial, you've also described your own relationship with Odin as cordial?
Correct.
And did you consider him a friend of yours?
Yeah, I would say he was a friend, yeah.
Okay, and how well did you know him?
I mean, I knew him a little, but I mean, doesn't make him a friend. I befriended him because of my sister, so yeah, I would consider him as a friend to me.
Okay. So to the extent that you knew about Odin Lloyd, I think you had indicated you knew some background information about him?
Right.
Okay. And outside of that, or just knowing that, did that qualify as being a friend of yours?
Yeah,
Okay. So did you know him much better than just the background information?
I wouldn't say much better, but I allowed him in my home, so that allowed him to be a friend.
Okay. So in terms of your description, you had described both your relationship and the defendant's relationship with Odin as cordial.
Correct.
Now, do you recall Father's Day of, let me back up actually, Friday, June 14th, 2013. Do you recall that date?
June 14th?
June 14th, ma'am.
Not specifically.
Okay. Do you recall, if I suggest to you that was a Friday, do you remember at some point having made a plan to go out to dinner on that Friday night? Does that help you at all?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Or the defendant's mother, is that Terry Hernandez?
That's correct.
And did you ever use her to sometimes come to babysit your child so that you and the defendant could go out?
I believe once or twice, maybe.
Okay. Do you recall,
Just gonna ask you.
Sorry.
do you recall making an arrangement that weekend or that Friday night to have her come up and sit so that you could go out to dinner?
I don't remember exactly, but I believe it to be true.
Okay. And do you know whether you ultimately went out to dinner that night?
I don't remember.
Okay. And just in fairness, do you remember the night I'm talking about?
Vaguely.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, the very next day, that being Saturday, June 15th of 2013, do you recall when you woke up in the morning where Aaron was?
I don't.
Okay. Do you remember whether he had gone out the night before?
Maybe?
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you recall an occasion, excuse me, where Terry Hernandez was at your home and you had gotten up in the morning and you were supposed to go to breakfast?
Yes.
Okay. And when you had gotten up in the morning, Terry Hernandez, the defendant's mother, had stayed overnight?
I believe so, yes.
And was the defendant, Aaron Hernandez, home at that time?
No.
As a result of that, do you recall whether you tried to contact him?
I believe so.
And how did you go about to try and contact him?
I believe I tried calling him.
Okay. Do you recall how many times that you tried to call him?
I don't.
At some point, were you able to get through to him?
Yeah, I guess you can put it like that.
Okay. Prior to getting through to him, did you have to call somebody else, or did you call somebody else?
Yes.
Who did you call?
Shania.
Okay, your sister.
Yes.
And did you ask her to do something for you?
I believe I asked her to contact Odin.
And did you ask her to get a message to Aaron?
I don't remember what exactly I said to her, but along those lines.
Okay. Now, sometime after you did that, did you hear from the defendant, Aaron?
Yes.
Okay. And how did you hear from him? What was the nature of the communication?
As far as text and call, or?
Yeah, was it in person, a text, or a call?
Okay. It was a text message, I believe.
And let me just have one moment. Apologize, John. I don't know if I could use it. I'm going to place an exhibit 117 in the overhead. And do you recognize that phone number there?
I do.
And is that your phone number at that time?
That's correct.
Now I'm just showing you a text message. Do you recognize this text message?
I do.
And what do you recognize that text message to be?
The text I received from Aaron.
Okay, I'm sorry, ma'am.
The text I received from Aaron.
Okay, and does that reflect the accurate date of Saturday, June 15, 2013, at approximately 8:57 a.m.?
It does.
And does that text say, "I fucked up again," or "fuck, I didn't mean to, but got drunk and too fucked up, and Bo took care of me and somehow told him about my other spot, and I just woke up bugging, I'm sorry, and on way home"? Is that the text message you received on that date, ma'am?
Yes.
Now, ma'am, do you know, at that time, do you know what the spot was?
I mean, I have,
Did you have an idea, did you know what it was on this date when you received this?
no.
Okay. And did you have a subsequent conversation with the defendant about what he meant by his other spot?
Did I have a conversation with
Yes,
him? I believe so.
Okay, when you say you believe so, when do you believe you would have had that conversation?
Maybe when I saw him next, which would be that day.
And did he tell you what, at that time, did he tell you what the spot was?
I'm not sure.
And just with regard to, I just woke up bugging. Do you know what bugging is or means?
I do.
Okay, what does that mean?
I guess kind of out of your element, like kind of wake up and you're looking around.
Okay. Have you ever used that term that way?
Bugging?
Yes.
Not that I can remember.
Okay. You recall indicating he's like being crazy or going crazy or something of that nature? I'm bugging?
Bugging?
Yes.
I wouldn't say the extent of going crazy, but I mean just, I guess, in shock.
Okay. Now, after you received this text, how long after before you next saw the defendant?
Maybe within the hour. What time was that?
8:57 a.m. Does that help you?
Maybe within the hour or two.
Okay. And just tell, when you next saw him, where did you see him?
In our driveway.
Okay. And were you outside of the home at that time when you saw him at the driveway?
I was.
And who were you with?
My daughter and my mother-in-law.
And do you recall what time you had planned to go to breakfast that morning?
The time?
Yes. Had there been a fixed time to go to breakfast?
I'm not too sure.
So when you say he arrived within an hour or two, if the text message being around 8:57, that almost 9, is it around 10 or 11?
Yes.
Okay. And when he arrived, did you see how he was traveling?
Yes.
And how was he traveling?
In a truck.
Okay, when you say a truck, can you just describe what color was it?
Black.
And when you say a truck, is it like an SUV?
Yes.
Okay. Are you familiar with a Suburban, that type
Yes.
of vehicle?
Yes.
Do you know if it was a Suburban?
It was something similar. I don't know the exact make or model.
Okay. Had you seen that vehicle before, that day?
Yes.
And how long had you seen that vehicle?
I don't know.
Do you know whose vehicle it was?
Yes.
And whose was it?
Aaron's.
And when you said it was Aaron's, do you know, was that a vehicle he owned or was renting?
Renting.
Now, when you saw Aaron in the driveway, was he with anybody?
Yes.
And who was he with?
Odin.
And how long did you see them in the driveway?
A few minutes.
And within that few minutes, did you see somebody leave?
Yes.
Who left?
Odin.
And when he left, did he, how did he leave? How was he traveling?
In the truck.
And that being the Suburban?
Correct.
Okay. Now, did you hear any conversation between the defendant and Odin about relating to that vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you hear being said?
Objection to that question, Your Honor.
I'll withdraw that and pose another one, Your Honor. Did you hear the defendant say something to Odin about doing something with the truck?
Yes.
What did he say?
To return it when he was finished.
And after that, did you see, after that conversation, did you see Odin depart?
Yes.
Did you see him again?
Not from my knowledge.
So that, on that day, Saturday, June 15th, did you ultimately go out to breakfast?
Yes.
And then after you went out to breakfast, what did you do?
I believe we brought our daughter to her gym class.
And then sometime after that, did you return back to your home?
I believe so.
Now, and do you know if Terry Hernandez at some point had left?
Yes.
Okay. Just going now to the next day, being Sunday, June 16th of 2013. Do you recall that being some not a holiday, but a day that's celebrated?
Yes.
And what day is that?
Father's Day?
And on that date, did you have an occasion sometime in the evening to make a plan to do something?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you plan on doing?
I planned a picnic for Father's Day.
Okay, and later on in the evening, excuse me, did you make some plans to go out for dinner?
Yes.
And in furtherance of that plan, did you or the defendant contact anybody?
I did.
Okay, who did you contact?
Our babysitter at that time,
And at that time, who was your babysitter?
Jen.
Okay, and do you know her full name?
Jennifer, was it Fortier, I believe?
And excuse me, how long had she been your babysitter?
At that time, I believe a few months.
Okay. Do you know when she first began as your babysitter?
I don't.
Do you recall sometime in March 2013 traveling to Mexico?
Yes.
And when you traveled to Mexico, well, first of all, who went with you to Mexico?
It was a family trip, so that included myself, Aaron, and our daughter.
Anybody else?
The babysitter.
Okay. And what babysitter was that?
That was Jennifer.
And do you know whether she was working as your babysitter prior to that trip?
I'm not sure if I gave her a test run or not. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. But in any event, do you recall that whether she had been working for you any long period of time before that trip to Mexico?
No.
Okay. And so how long were you down in Mexico?
Oh, a week, I think.
And do you recall what areas of Mexico you went to?
Cabo.
And do you recall the dates that you went to Mexico?
I don't.
Or the approximate time in March that you would have gone?
No, I know it was hot. That's about it.
Okay. Is your memory exhausted as to the time you would have gone?
The time frame, yes.
Yes,
I'm
okay.
not sure.
Approach, Your Honor. And I'm just going to show you this document. And again, just ask you if you would read some of these items to yourself
Okay.
to see if it would refresh your memory.
Yes.
Does that refresh your memory about the dates that you traveled to Mexico, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay, what were the dates?
I believe the March 18th was the starting date.
And you indicated you were down there for how long?
I believe a week. A few days to a week, I'm not sure.
You recall when you were down there whether you were able to use your phone?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Did you have to make some arrangement about getting an international number?
Not necessarily an international number, or I'm not sure how it works, but a plan, I guess, to be put in place for my phone, yes.
Okay, did you have to make some arrangement to do something with a plan for your phone while you were out of the country?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you returned, Jen Fortier, did she become your permanent babysitter at that time?
I wouldn't say permanent because I wasn't sure if I was going to keep her or not, but she did babysit for us, yes.
Okay, so when you returned, that was you indicated your trip was approximately a week?
Right.
So that would be from beginning March 18th, when would you have returned back to Massachusetts?
April, I think.
Okay. And during April, did you use her as your babysitter for your child?
Yes.
Okay, and what about in May?
Yes.
And what about in June?
Yes, I think, yes. Yes.
Okay. Now, on the date of, on Father's Day, I'd asked you about whether you had gone out to dinner at some point. And
Yes.
you indicated you had made an arrangement, and that was with Jen Fortier.
That's correct.
You recall her coming to your house approximately 7:45 on that Sunday night?
I don't remember the time, but I do remember her coming.
Okay, and you recall what time you left the home to go out to dinner?
I don't.
Okay. And Your Honor, if I could use the Exhibit 150, please. Ma'am, while he's setting this up, back in the spring of 2013, did you have a surveillance system in your home?
Yes.
And is it fair to say there were certain cameras throughout the home, inside and then a few outside?
Yes.
And additionally, there were some control panels in the house?
Correct.
And where were the control panels?
Our master bedroom, the kitchen, and the basement.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm just going to direct your attention now to the video here, reflecting June 16, 2013, in the system time, military time, 20:52. Do you see yourself in this video?
I do.
And do you see the defendant as well?
I do.
Do you recall whether this was the night you were going out on Father's Day?
Yes, I believe it was.
Now, the defendant, was he a smoker at this time?
Yes.
And what type of, what was he smoking?
Marijuana.
Okay. And how frequently was he smoking marijuana?
I couldn't tell you. It was frequent.
Okay, and when you say frequent, is that on a daily basis?
Yes.
And do you know how many times in a day's time he would smoke?
Honestly, I have no idea.
Okay. When he was, could you just stop that for a minute? When he was smoking, where would he generally smoke if it were at the home?
In the basement.
Okay. And that, on those occasions that he was smoking, would you be in that area or would you be somewhere else in the home?
Would I be in the basement?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Now, did you know him as well to smoke outside?
On occasions, yes.
You can play this here. Now, at this time, when you said you had made a plan, did you know where you were going as you were leaving in terms of for dinner plans?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you have a conversation at some point with the defendant about where you would go to dinner?
Yes.
Are we done with the video?
No, I'd like that if I could.
If you're about to inquire with respect to it, you may.
Okay, if you wish, Ron, I'll just wait till the video is finished. Thank you. And ma'am, when you left on Father's Day night, where were you going?
I don't know if I knew at that time.
Okay, at some point, did you have a conversation during the ride?
Yes.
And did you learn where you were going?
Yes.
And where was that?
I believe it's called South Street,
Okay. And do you know what city or town that's located in?
Rhode Island.
Had you ever been to that location before?
I think once before.
Okay. And do you know, had you made any arrangements to meet anybody at that location on the evening of Father's Day?
Myself?
Yes, ma'am.
No.
Okay. Now, approximately how far is it to travel from your home to South Street Cafe?
Maybe 25 minutes to a half hour.
Okay. And just in terms of the route that you traveled that night, you recall how you traveled to the South Street Cafe?
I think we took the highway
And what highway is that?
going towards Providence.
Are you familiar with Route 95?
Yes.
Do you recall, would that be the route that you would travel or a different route?
I believe that's the way we traveled.
Okay. Now, after traveling that amount of time, did you go anywhere before going to the South Street Cafe?
I don't think so.
And when you arrived there, did you go inside?
Yes.
And did you meet with anybody?
Not right away.
Okay, so when you first arrived, was it just yourself and the defendant?
Yes.
And did you go to a particular area inside South Street Cafe?
We did.
And where was that?
It was the bottom half of the cafe.
Okay. And did you sit at a table or a bench or?
It was, I don't know, a high-rise table.
Okay. And after you and the defendant sat down, some point later, did anyone join you?
Yes.
Okay. How long were you there before somebody joined you?
Not sure, maybe an hour.
Okay. During that time, were you having any food or beverage?
Yes.
And what were you having?
I believe we ordered wings and maybe some drinks.
And do you, when you say drinks, do you recall having any alcoholic drinks?
Yes.
Do you know what you were drinking?
Usually it's cranberry and Grey Goose.
Okay. And what about the defendant? Do you remember what he was drinking?
I don't.
Okay. Now, at some point, you said you were joined by others,
Yes.
and that was after some period of time, an hour or longer.
Yes.
And who else joined you?
Robbie and his, girlfriend, fiance, I'm not sure what she is. And then 2 additional people.
Okay. And this individual, Robbie, had you met him before?
I have.
And how did you know him?
He was Aaron's barber.
How long had he been Aaron's barber?
Maybe at that point a year, maybe more.
Okay. And would you ever see him at your home?
Yes,
How frequently?
frequently.
And was there a particular purpose he would come to your home?
Yes.
And what was that?
Well, to cut Aaron's hair, to give him marijuana.
When you say about marijuana, what would he come to the house regarding marijuana for?
What for?
Was he either bringing marijuana or picking it up, or?
Bringing.
And do you know whether the defendant was giving him money to buy marijuana from him?
I believe so.
So on this evening, when you said Robbie was there with a girlfriend or fiance, had you ever met her before?
No.
Okay. And this other, at some point, another couple had joined you?
Yes.
And had you ever met them before?
No.
How long were you in the company of Robbie, his girlfriend, and this other couple who you had not met before?
Until closing, I believe.
Okay. And do you know at what time closing was that evening?
Assuming it's somewhere around 1, 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Somewhere in that area.
Honor, may I push you over there? And I'm just placing on the overhead what's marked 227. And can you see the heading there?
I can.
Now, do you recall, ma'am, at approximately what time, having left around 9 o'clock in the evening from your home at Ronald C. Meyer, approximately what time, and considering the travel time that you've described, approximately what time would you have arrived at South Street Cafe?
I'd say somewhere around 10:15, 10:20, somewhere around that
Okay.
area.
Do you think you left sometime later than 9 o'clock from Ronald C. Meyer? Let me just ask you this. Do you think you left at approximately, again, give or take, 9 p.m. on Father's Day evening?
Oh, I'm sorry, you're asking as far as when we arrived. So I'm basing it off of this time, I'm sorry. That's why it said 10, 10:15.
I'm just going to start with Ronald C. Meyer. I think earlier when I asked you about leaving around 9 o'clock, would you disagree with that? From your
Yes.
home?
Well, leaving our home around 9 o'clock?
Yes.
I don't think I would disagree this time, kind of.
Okay, well, let me just...
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, yes. Yes, I get what you're saying.
Okay. And it was approximately, I think you said 25 minutes or a half hour to travel.
Right.
And so if you arrived there around 9:30, would that be consistent with your memory?
If we arrived there around 9:30?
Well, if you left at 9 and you said you didn't stop anywhere else.
Right, then yes.
Okay. And do you recall after arriving, setting up a bar tab or running a tab, so to speak?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, at some point at the end of the evening, did somebody settle up and pay the whatever was owed for food and drink?
Yes,
And you know who did that?
yes.
And who was that?
Aaron?
And I'm just going to direct your attention to the items listed on Exhibit 227. Do you recall, as these other folks joined you, whether they had anything to eat or drink?
I believe so.
Okay. Now, with regard to, I was asking you about approximately what time did you remain at the South Street Cafe. Do you recall leaving sometime after the check was settled or closed?
Yes,
And do you recall it being somewhere in the vicinity of 12:20 in the evening, that after settling that you would have left?
that looks correct, yeah.
Now, just prior to leaving, ma'am, do you recall whether somebody took your picture?
Yes,
Okay, and I'm just going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 223. You recognize this as a picture taken just prior to your departing South Street Cafe.
I do.
And if you would, ma'am, just beginning with you in the picture, just identify who's in that picture.
Sure. There's myself,
Okay,
Aaron.
and just, so I'm starting
sorry.
on the left. That is you.
Would you prefer that I point, or
Yes, if you don't mind, I'll follow your thing.
myself?
Yes.
Aaron.
Okay.
I'm not sure who this individual is,
Okay.
and that is his other half.
Okay.
This is Robbie's girlfriend or fiance,
Okay.
and then that's Robbie himself.
Okay. And Robbie was is the one who's cutting Aaron's hair.
Right.
Now, just directing your attention, Aaron Hernandez was wearing what type of top?
It looks to be a white shirt, hoodie. I don't know what you classify it.
I'll show you what's been marked as 2.4. Is that just a closer up of the same picture?
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen, or do you recognize that white hoodie?
No.
Now, ma'am, during the time that, from the time you actually left your home, Ronald C. Meyer, did you know the defendant had a phone on that date?
Yes.
And did you know what his number was?
Give me a second. I believe it was 203-606-8969, maybe?
Okay. And That phone, how long had he had that phone?
I'm not sure.
Okay. And who was, in terms of where the billing went to, did that go to him or to somebody else?
The billing?
Yes.
What kind of?
I'm sorry. Do you know whether you had the subscriber, that you had subscribed for 2 phones?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I don't need to show you these 2 items. If I could approach on the overhead, thank you. So, ma'am, I'm first just going to show you what was marked 302. And you see the, at the top here, indicating subscriber information,
Yes.
and then it indicates certain information about the financially liable party.
Yes,
And is that your information?
it is.
Okay. And that contains your phone number there?
It does.
And then, as far as the user information, does that also contain your information down here?
Yes,
Same number and your name,
correct.
as well as the MSISDN active September 3rd, 2012 to current.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to show you with mark 297. You recognize this is the same type of document, subscriber information from AT&T.
Yes.
And again, financially liable party, you recognize that is you.
Yes. I'm sorry, is there any way that you can,
Oh, I beg your pardon.
well, no, my social security number is on that one. So, and it was just shown.
Okay. Approach you on the witness. Ma'am, I'm just going to show you this document. If you would just point to that area that you had just referenced showing personal information.
This area right here.
That there? Okay. Okay, and just for the purpose of the record, on
Right,
this
there's-
other one, there was not.
There's nothing there.
Okay, thank you. If I could be allowed to read that.
Okay.
Ma'am, I've got 302 now on the overhead. This, I think, you indicated did not show any personal information, is that true?
That's true.
Now, does that show you, you as the financial liable party on this subscriber information?
It does.
And the user information, sorry, I'm going to go back to 297. The user information on this, can you see that now, ma'am?
I can.
I cannot.
I can.
Oh, you can, okay. And that number there, the MSISDN number, do you recognize it?
I do.
And whose number do you recognize that to be?
Aaron's number.
And just in terms of the active MSISDN active date, September 3, 2012, So right to August 3, 2013.
That's correct.
And again, it indicating your name on, for the billing information. Is that true?
That's true.
Excuse me, Your Honor, if I could. Now, ma'am, are you familiar with the phone that Aaron Hernandez had at that time?
I'm not.
Okay. Do you recall making a purchase of a phone sometime in June of 2013 for the defendant?
I could have. I don't remember.
Okay. Now, that night, Father's Day night, when you left your home with the defendant and were heading towards South Street Cafe, do you recall him using his phone that night?
I don't.
And at some point in time after arriving there, do you recall him using his phone throughout the course of the evening?
I don't.
Did you see him not necessarily even just talking on the phone, but like manipulating a phone or texting or anything of that nature?
I don't remember.
Okay. Now, at some point, about maybe the middle point of your evening at the South Street Cafe, do you recall him asking you to borrow your phone?
Yes.
Okay. And just, was there a reason he had asked, did he express a reason to you about using your phone?
I believe his phone was dead.
Okay. And is that what he said to you?
I mean, I remember it being off.
Okay. So you saw it in an off condition?
Correct.
And as a result of that, did you loan him your phone?
I did.
And how long did he then use your phone?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you recall when you loaned him your phone, whether he made any calls or used it for texting?
I'm not sure. Might have been both or one or the other. I'm not sure.
Do you recall at any point after you loaned him your phone observing him actually on the phone, either calling someone or talking to somebody?
No.
While you were at the South Street Cafe, were you in his presence the whole time?
No.
And when he wasn't with you, do you know where he was?
Outside.
And when you say he was outside, do you know how many times he was outside?
I don't.
Okay. When he was outside, did you ever go outside?
No.
Okay, where were you?
At the table.
And were you with anyone at the table?
I believe so.
And who was that?
I believe the rest of the people there.
Okay, so when you saw the defendant go outside, was he with anybody?
I don't remember.
Okay, do you know how long he was outside?
I don't know, a couple minutes, I'm not sure.
Okay, and then after the next occasion that you saw him, did you have a conversation with him about what he was doing outside?
No.
Okay. During the course of that evening, did you know of any plans for later that night?
No.
Now, when after settling up the bill, taking that photograph, did you and the defendant leave?
Yes.
And when you left, who was driving?
Aaron?
And just in terms of his level of sobriety at that point, how would you characterize that?
I don't know, we were both kind of intoxicated, I guess.
Okay. And when you left, did you see or smell any marijuana?
I I don't remember.
Okay. Do you know during the course of that evening whether he was smoking at all?
I believe so.
Okay, and again, let me ask it this way. While at the South Street Cafe, whether inside the club or outside, do you think, or did you notice him or observe him to be smoking marijuana?
I didn't observe him, but it wasn't in my view, so.
Okay. And so, when you left, do you excuse me, do you know how long it took you to get home?
Well, I would say about the same, but I don't really recall our trip home.
Okay. Do you recall the trip, just in terms of the trip being any quicker or any slower, or about the same?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, when you arrived home, just tell us about that. What did you do after you you drove into the driveway?
I got out of the car.
And when you got out of the car, I think you had indicated that the defendant had been driving.
Right.
And do you know where he parked the car?
On the side of our garage, I believe.
Okay. Your Honor, if I could go back to Exhibit 150, please. And just before we start that, were you expecting anybody at your home?
No.
Okay. Did you have, prior to arriving home, did you have a phone conversation with anybody at your home?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and who did you speak with?
The babysitter?
Okay. And did you ask, during a conversation with the babysitter, did you ever ask to have somebody else put on the phone?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Do you recall having, prior to arriving home, having any phone contact with Ernest Wallace or Bo?
No.
Now, ma'am, when you drove back with the defendant, where did he park the car?
On the side of the garage, it looks like.
Okay. And do you know, when he parked it, do you know whether the engine was running, or was it on or off?
I don't know.
Okay. Did you do something after he had stopped the car? Did you do something with the car?
Yes.
And what did you do?
I moved it forward.
Okay, and your purpose in moving it forward was what?
It just makes sense to me for it not to be, kind of out, so
Okay.
that's generally where I
Is that the area where it's showing on the video, is that the general area where you would normally park your car?
that or in the bay?
In the bay that we talked about earlier, Bay 1, I think that you said the first bay was the one close to the street,
Correct.
and then there was a second bay.
Correct.
Would that be the typical one that you would park?
Yes.
And there was also a third bay, is that right?
Correct.
Was that used for any, for the purpose of parking cars or just storage?
Patio furniture, that's about it.
Okay. Now, after you arrived, after you got out of the car, did you see anybody that you recognized around your home?
Yes.
And who did you see?
Bo.
Okay. And when you say you saw Bo, where was Bo?
I believe he was walking up the driveway.
Okay, and when you saw him, did you greet him?
I did.
And how did you greet him?
I believe I gave him a hug.
Okay. And just what was your relationship with Bo at that time?
We were friends, I guess.
Okay. And when you gave him a hug, did you notice anything unusual about him?
I didn't pay attention.
Okay. Did he appear to be wet to the touch?
I don't remember.
Okay. So after you hugged him, did you have a conversation with him? Just yes or no?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. And when was the last time that you had seen Bo at your home, if you recall?
The last time?
Yeah, before this occasion when you arrived home from South Street Cafe.
So before this occasion here?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, geez.
Do you know whether it was in days or weeks or?
Maybe days, I'm not sure.
Okay. And if we could just play just another.
Well, it's 1 o'clock, so we're going to
Okay.
stop at this time. We'll resume at 2.
You yourselves or with anyone else?
All right.